Okay, welcome everyone to your round 9 review MotoGP this season. Mugello, the Italian Grand Prix. Is it the centerpiece, like the jewel in the crown of MotoGP? Is it Assen? Of course, the oldest still running Grand Prix. I mean, is it that one? I don't know. For me, I think maybe atmosphere-wise, and I have been to Assen, I've never been to Mugello. And Assen, the atmosphere was fantastic. But I think the fact that you don't have the history of the fans going to support the riders and the teams, where like you do have in Italy, because obviously some of the greatest riders of all time are Italian. They've got a lot of riders in the World Championship, and of course the best bike on the grid. So maybe that makes Mugello or is it Le Mans? Is it Le Mans? The one that draws the biggest crowds, you know? Let me know. Like, what is the, Monaco of MotoGP? Fortunate enough, like I said, to have been to Assen and Le Mans. Never been to Mugello. That's the one I need to see in real life to be like, is that the one? But from the telly, and look, I will put it out there, I'm a big fan of the Italian riders and Italian culture and the people. So maybe I'm a bit biased towards Mugello, even though I've never been there. I think it is probably the biggest race, just on vibe alone, But yeah, let me know what you think in the comments. Now, I will put it out there straight away. We are going to be talking about Mugello. We're going to be talking about Pecco Bagnaia, Valentino Rossi, Marc Marquez, Alex Marquez, and everything that comes along with that. So I will put it out there straight away, and I've worn this top to make it known my old school allegiances for the last over 20 years. I'm a Rossi guy. And like I just said, I like the Italians. I have an Italian surname. My dad's side of the family is Italian, so I take everything I'm about to say with a pinch of salt, as I'm about to start ragging on the Españas. Not ragging. No, that's the wrong word. I'm going to be critical. Potentially. But look, I've got this, just so that you know where I stand. This is what I don't want it to come across like I'm trying to pretend like I'm being all objective. I'm probably not, right? So here we go. And before we start, big thank you to everyone from last week's video. We were below 800 subscribers. I think we needed 4 subscribers to get to 800. I asked if just 4 people could subscribe. We're on 805 as it stands now. So big thank you to everyone in that 2-week break who watched the videos, subscribed. I'm eternally grateful. Thank you very much. Now, where do we start? I'd like to start with Pecco, actually. I know he didn't win the race. He is really the story of this weekend, maybe, because, and I'll tell you why it's not. I know Marc, big thing Marc here, winning at Mugello when he's always kind of struggled there. But as much as it says about him, did we know this was coming? It says a lot more for Pecco, because any thought we had that he could maybe turn it around, this was the line in the sand. Mugello was the line in the sand. Maybe you could argue Assen, because he loves Assen as well. But Mugello, this is the one. He's won there 3 years in a row. If he was going to do it anywhere, if he was going to be on pace anywhere, it was going to be here. And I know he's won this season already, but that's because Marc crashed, right? It's a big failure, I've got to say. It is a big failure for that side of the garage. And not saying that, like, he's failed. He's done what he could. And you saw it in the race, in the Grand Prix on Sunday. He scrapped and he fought and he did absolutely, I think this is what he had to do. Unsettle Marc. If it didn't unsettle him in that first half of the race and he went on, it was never going to work. But he had to unsettle him early, see what he could do. Probably didn't help him that Alex got his nose in there and became a part of it. He probably would have maybe preferred it to just be one-on-one. And I'll get into that. I'll get into why that is. We're getting to Alex. Don't you worry about that. This was it for Pecco, and he didn't have it. And again, not saying he doesn't have it on ability. I'm saying something in the combination of him with that GP25, with the balance of it, the way it feels. And you can see it, especially going into turn 1. It does it a little bit for the others. I'm talking about Marc with the GP25 and Digi, where it does that thing where it'll step out on the brakes as he's braking into the corner. But for him, it was like proper, like kicking out, and you can actually see where it might maybe is affecting him and what he means when he says it. And we're all going, just ride the bike, mate. This was the most visual example, I think, as a fan, you could have watching it of what he's talking about. Because it's that big, long braking zone. You add a lean for a lot of it, a slight lean, and it's just stepping. It's stepping. And I don't know exactly what that is. Not having an engineer's brain or even a writer's brain, to be honest. You could really see it. And look, at the end of the day, he didn't have enough, and he fell short of even Digi in the end, and that will be seen as like a big failure and drop off as well at the end of the race. But for me, I think if he'd raced that race the same way Digi did, where he let the rest get away at the front, held back, just sat, fourth, did your laps, and then at the end of the race sort of pushed on, I think he would have been in the same position. But because he tried to win the race in the first few laps and really pushed and fought and scrapped with Marc and Alex, I think that just meant that at the end of the race, he didn't have anything left, tyre-wise and things like that. So I think, on balance, I don't think if he just rode a race start to finish to try and finish as quickly as possible, he probably could have done what Digi did and been strong at the end of the race too. But that's by the by. So Marc wins again, and I said I'd get to Alex, and we will do that now. But first, with Marc, he has sort of wisened up, I feel like. Well, at least this weekend, where he maybe knows that is coming early, and all he has to do is not lose his head early in the race, and he'll probably see it out, and he knows that over the full distance, he's probably going to have it covered. And that's what he did. He saw out that he knew the attacks were coming. He let them happen. He still scrapped. He still fought, and he was still a good dogfight, and he still fought. So I'm not saying he just let Pecco get at him early, but he obviously wanted to break away a bit earlier than he did, and Pecco kept having a nibble. But you could see that he just knew the longer it went on, the more advantage he had to win the race. So don't do anything silly, and he didn't. He kept his nose clean. Really good ride from him at a place where, like I said, he's not been successful in the past. One of the few places, perhaps maybe even the only place, and he has won there just once before, I think. So correct me if I'm wrong on that. Now, Alex, I asked the question last week. And gave Alex the benefit of the doubt. Does he race Marc differently? I said maybe it was just last week because he knew he wasn't beating Marc there. I say last week, 2 weeks ago, last race. He knew he wasn't beating Marc there anyway in Aragon. So he just thought, just finish the race as quick as possible. Come second. If Marc goes past you, he goes past you. You never beaten him that day anyway. I gave him the benefit of the doubt. That's why I didn't scrap with him. What I would like to see is what Pecco's done to Marc here. But then, like I just explained, maybe that does cost you a third place later in the race or a second place later in the race. So maybe he is doing the right thing. But I asked the question, is he fighting Marc as hard as he needs to, or as hard as he should? Benefit of the doubt for Aragon? Here, no. No. Alex, fantastic this season. He's been great in the fight with other riders. When it comes to Marc, no cojones. Where are your cojones, Alex? Come on. Now, the only reason I say it is, and I did read an article. I think it was on Crash. I did read an article. Was it yesterday or whatever? Him explaining and responding to the criticism of him not scrapping with Marc and fighting Marc as hard as he does Pecco. And he goes, look, if the guy's quicker than you, paraphrasing here, if the guy's quicker than you can't fight him. Now I scrap with the others because I'm quicker than them. Right, I get that. But that's sort of like you're talking about a full race distance or over a full lap. There were parts of that lap, specifically, he was quicker than Marc through the fast right-handers. Coming out of Arrabbiata 2, big run on Marc. You could see it on the onboards. Big run on Marc every single time. No attack. There was one where Marc got passed by Pecco. It put him on the back foot a little bit going into, I want to say, the second corner, possibly, into that left-hander, into the chicane, into the S. Has a run on him, doesn't make the move to go into second place. The few times that we saw where he had the run on him through Arrabbiata 2, up the hill into the right-hander, didn't make the move. One time, he got in second place, and it wasn't Marc he was behind, it was Pecco. He followed him through one corner where he was too far away to make the move. Next corner on the switch back into the right-hander, made the move. It literally was prepared to make the move after sitting behind Pecco for all of about 3 seconds. With Marc, he sat behind him many, many times throughout the laps. Never once made the move. I get what he's saying. If you think the guy's quicker than you, you can't make the move. But you will never, ever beat Marc one-on-one doing that. This just says to me that when he's behind Marc, he's prepared to finish behind him. When he's behind other riders, he's not. He's willing to unsettle them and make a lunge and maybe a bit of a dive bomb or whatever. When it's Marc, he's not willing to do it. He can say what he likes. This is my opinion. From what I saw on track and what I saw at Aragon, he's just never going to do it. So anyone expecting it or waiting for it or hoping for it, it's not going to happen. And just another note, I've got a note here on Pecco. Sorry, I've got my notes in the wrong order. A little note here on Pecco. Another reason we saw where we did see an improvement from him was it in Aragon, where he ran a different brake disc and he found a bit of feeling. I have heard he couldn't run that disc at Mugello because Mugello's not a hard enough braking circuit that you can get enough temperature into whatever disc. Was it a larger disc? And the carbon brakes, you need a lot of heavy braking in a disc that size to generate enough heat for it to work effectively. So we couldn't run that at Mugello because there's not enough hard braking zones often enough that you get enough temperature in the brakes. So we had to run the normal disc, the one that he's been struggling with. Whether he can then run that in Assen, I don't think Assen. If you can't run it in Mugello, I would assume you couldn't run it in Assen. Because again, I'm trying to think of a lot of hard, heavy braking zones throughout the lap. It flows a lot, Assen, like Mugello does. In a different way, but it flows. Different kinds of corners, but lots of kinks and things like that. So whether you brake hard enough there, I don't know if you'll be able to run it again. So we may have to wait another week for Pecco to be back on good feeling mode. Back onto that point that I was making earlier. And now as we switch back again to Marc and Alex, this is where I've got my Rossi top on. The booing. Lots of talk about the booing. My first point about the booing of people in MotoGP, and let's say people, it's always just Marc. Whether you put that down to him or you put that down to sour grapes from the Italians. But my point about booing in any sport is like, who cares? Who cares? Maybe it's an old school attitude. We have to think about, guys. Mental health. I'm telling you, Marc doesn't give a shit. Absolutely does not give a shit, that guy. Why would he? He knows he's in enemy territory. He obviously played up to the Ducati-ness of it, took the Ducati flag at the end and put it in front of in the dirt and, in the gravel, whatever. He's trying to win him over. I don't even know why he tries. It's not going to happen. And then Tarozzi, was it, like, in front of the crowd, telling him to not boo and all that? Mate, if he wasn't wearing red, you wouldn't give a shit. Like, do you know what I mean? Like saying he's one of us now. He's Spanish. He'll never be one of you. What you've done is you've brought a guy in, rightfully so, by the way, because your job is to win world championships. This is your best way to do it, right? He's going to win the next 3 on the trot, probably. I get it, but you've just got to accept the fact you've brought in the biggest pantomime villain in Italian motorsport history into an Italian team. Doesn't mean the Italians are going to like him. First of all, he's Spanish. There's a bit of friction there, right? Second of all, he was the guy. You may or may not agree with this or not. Maybe this is a video for another day. Maybe I'll do this one day. The Sepang 2015 video. I've avoided it like the plague, to be honest, but maybe we should do one. And everyone's got their own opinion on it. I know what my opinion is, but this is not saying that this is my opinion. But in the eyes of these people, he's the guy that cost number 10. He's the guy that cost number 10, single-handedly. The yellow in the crowd is still there, and it will be for a long time, long after Marc retires. Do you understand this? This is the biggest character in MotoGP history. They're going to boo. They're going to boo. Marc can do what he wants to say he's part of the Italian thing now, the team, and he's part of it. And, and then, look, fair enough, Marc coming out and saying, like, well, why are you booing Alex then? He didn't do anything. Fair enough. But they're just going to do it. Like, and you know what? You watch football, you watch anything. I'm Australian. We watch a lot of cricket, the Ashes, whatever. It's hostile when you go play the Ashes away from home for the English in Australia and for the Aussies here in England. Chanting and booing and sledging and, mate, like, just don't take it so personally. Once a year, you're going to get the shit booed out of you. Maybe even at Mazzano as well. That's how it's going to be. It'll never, ever, ever stop. I don't know why they care. I don't know why Ducati care. I have no idea. They're getting the last laugh anyway. Now that I've got that off my chest, back to the racing. The Frankie Morbidelli, let's talk about that, because I'm trying to think back now to Frankie's first couple of years in the World Championship where he was a real hot talent and he was near the front a lot. And thinking back to his Moto2 days, was his judgment ever this bad before? Or has this developed in him as he's gotten older and slower? Now, don't forget, he's lost a bit of pace over the years. We don't know where that's come from. But he just sort of hit a wall, didn't he, at some point? Maybe the injury that he had. And I try not to attribute too much to injuries because you recover. But something in him lost a bit of pace over the years. And is that where he's now accommodating for that, trying too hard, putting in moves that aren't there, and lacking a bit of judgment in these situations? Because this was a bad one. Single long lap penalty, which he ended up missing and having to do a double anyway. But a lot of talk about how it should have been a double long lap penalty to start with. I probably agree with that. Like, he's just punted him off the road. So let me know, did Frankie have these error in judgment problems when he was younger and quicker? I don't know if he did, but yeah, that happened during the race. A couple of other notable things I want to talk about is KTM was strong. So there's something promising happening there. Pedro sounds like he's still not convinced. I wouldn't be either. He will. I know you can talk about his form being up and down. He's maybe not as quick as Vinales at the moment, whatever. He still have his pick, I think, of rides. When the time comes, will he? Has he done enough? But they were strong. The Japanese bikes really struggled. I don't know what it is about Mugello where they struggled so much, where they have had pace in other places. But we'll talk about it a little bit when we get to the All Japan Cup later on. And a bit of a shot in the arm here for Aprilia, because there was a little bit to go off here, I want to say. Let me check the results again, because I think they had all three, I say all three, Savadori was there too, but all three main riders, full-time riders, in the top 10 at the Grand Prix, which is great. I mean, Agura 10th, Ralph Fernandez 7th, and Bez 5th. Lovely bit of work from Aprilia. Hopefully they can sustain that. After a strong start to the season for Agura, it's leveled off a bit. Can we see sort of something there for them? So yeah, strong for Aprilia. Can they sustain or continue on with that? Now, a couple of behind the scenes things to get through here. The first one's the Liberty Media acquisition of MotoGP. I don't know how everyone feels about it. I'm kind of excited about it. Now, I have a video on this. You can watch that. I'll link it up here. I have a video on this with my thoughts on it. So go back and watch that one. The main news about this now is why this is coming back up again is because the EU Commission for, whoever decides whether or not they're allowed to make the purchase based on competitiveness and, trying not to monopolize markets and things like that. That commission has given the green light for Liberty to buy MotoGP. So this is going to happen now. This is going to happen. And so we'll see how long it takes for any kind of restructuring within Dorna or anything like that, whether they're just happy with the trajectory of the sport and they're just like, we just want to acquire it and just let it keep doing its thing. Or do they want to really push it like they have Formula One? We're going into America a lot now, let's be honest. Laguna Seca might come back. That could be a good thing if we can get back to Laguna Seca. Obviously, great history there for MotoGP. But yeah, that's a thing that's going to happen now. Tell me your thoughts on it in the comments. Go watch my other video about it where I'd give you my thoughts on it. You can comment there and let me know what you think. Is it a good or a bad thing? We'll see. And on Mugello, I think another thing that lends it to being maybe the crown jewel of MotoGP is the celebs get out for it, man. The celebs are out there. And I'm not talking about like Formula One celebs where it's like some singer who's never seen a race before in her life. And she's like, yeah, I love Formula racing. You're like, yeah, great. Thanks, love. This is like celebrities who are obsessed with MotoGP turn up to Mugello. We had Eric Banner. Bloody Eric Banner. Who is a big motorcycle nut. And he goes to Phillip Island a lot as far as I can remember. He was there with Mark Webber there, big MotoGP fan. And of course, Keanu. Keanu, the biggest, highest profile MotoGP obsessed person of them all. Maybe you can include Brad Pitt, but is he obsessed in that way? Is he more of just a good big fan? Like, Keanu's passionate, which leads me to just a quick thing on Keanu. Could we see, if you know or not, Keanu owns his own motorcycle company, Arch Motorcycles. They build motorbikes. They sell motorbikes. They're pretty high end, as far as I can tell. Not something I could afford. And they're pretty cool. Because they've kind of got like a neo-retro, like the shape of them is almost a little bit retro, but they're very cutting edge and they look a bit technologically advanced. It's all carbon and shit on them. And there's like lots of electronics and they're cool and they're quick. And I think they really performance focused, even though they look a little bit almost cruisery, right? Anyway, not the point. The point is, Keanu's there wearing an Arch Racing cap. Could we see Arch GP one day? Do you think Keanu's got it in the back of his mind he's going to develop something? And I don't mean like Team Kenny Roberts, where it's just like a Honda engine and they developed a bike around it. Maybe that's what we want to do. Like, could you see them? Because I know that they work with, is it S&S for their engines, for their road bikes, developing a MotoGP engine one day and entering MotoGP as a manufacturer. That would be awesome. I'd love to see that. Now let's get into the All Japan Cup. Surprise results this weekend. Joan Mir's your winner, followed by Miguel Oliveira, Fabio Quartararo, Alex Rins, Taka Nakagami, scoring points again. This guy's unstoppable. Taka Nakagami should be riding for LCR Honda. Somkat Chantra in 6th, speaking of the devil. Jack Miller, Johan Zarco DNF'd. Which leaves us in the championship. Johan Zarco, 54 points, holds the lead. A DNF here. He'll need to be careful, but luckily his main rival isn't the one scoring the big points, which, let's be honest, it's Fabio Quartararo. Even though the points tally doesn't suggest it, he's the quickest man on a Japanese bike, along with Johan Zarco himself. Joan Mir goes to equal second with Luca Marini on 30 points. Luca Marini, I don't know if we'll see him in Assen either. No, we won't, because he's going to be replaced by Aleix Espargaro. Still no Marini. He's going to lose second, third in the World Championship probably now. Alex Rins, 4th, 28 points. Fabio Quartararo and Jack Miller on 27 points. Miguel Oliveira, 12 points. Taka Nakagami and Augusto Fernandez on 8 points. Both doing really well for non-full-time riders. Somkiat Chantra, 5 points. Let's get rid, let's be honest. And Aleix Espargaro with a chance to improve on his 1 point next weekend, as we mentioned. That's the All Japan Cup this week. Can anyone explain to me what is it about Mugello that's made the Japanese bike struggle so much this weekend? There may have been pace at times, maybe for the Yamahas. I'm talking like practice and qualifying. But in terms of like racing, they really fell away. And then Honda just was not there at all. Did not step into the ring at any point during the match. I don't know if that's a good metaphor or not. Probably not. I don't really think that makes sense. I was hearing a little bit on commentary about the Hondas maybe struggling because their weakest point is maybe on edge grip, and you spend a lot of time on the edge of the tyre in Mugello, So that's maybe explainable. Yamaha, whilst quick, like I said, at times over a lap, couldn't go the distance. So I don't know where that comes from. But yeah, let's go into Fantasy MotoGP now. And then we're going to get into Moto2 and Moto3. Don't you worry about that. I kept my team as this for this weekend. I brought in Maverick for Fabio after Friday, which almost was a masterstroke. But this is how I look at the moment. So let's get into the league and see how everybody is doing. I'm slowly climbing. I'm up to 24th. I've cracked the top 30. Thanks, everyone. I'm up and about now. Here we go. I finally figured the balance of the team how I want it. Did anyone boost this weekend? It was a tough one because if you boosted, you were brave because you're only boosting Marc, aren't you? You're not boosting Pecco or Alex. You're only ever boosting Marc. So if anyone boosted this weekend, fair play, because you've gone to a circuit where, Marc's not always the best and you've thought, I think he's going to do it this weekend. And he has. So here's how the league looks. Here's your top 10. Are you in the top 10? Jump in the comments. We want to know. We want to know who you are. Amongst our 805 subscribers now, you are the celebrities of the channel. This top 10. JJD80 holds first position. Great work. B. Navarra. If I'm pronouncing any of your names wrong, by the way, how not you don't want them to be said, just let me know in the comments. B. Navarra. Kudo Racing. Shifty. Team Motosexual Wears, a favourite of the channel. Hosiba Inaki. 13. Pizza Motorsports. What a great racing teams should be called things like that. It's like, oh, what do you want to call your team? A Pizza Motorsports, please. Why? Just like pizza. Moto Timing. Hello to Rob. Redline Nate and Kiss My Ass, and another favourite of the channel. Okay, there's your top 10. How's everybody doing? There's a few boosts left in that top 10. I think we're waiting for the Saxon ring. Am I wrong? There could be some movement in this top 10. And then from then on, it's all about how you can maybe predict any fallaways in form for maybe if you've got Alex in the team. Maybe you think he's going to fall away at the end of the season. Maybe Pecco comes good. That's your only way back in it after that, because you're going to be pretty locked in terms of team, constructor, and your two gold riders. Can you make up enough through silver riders? I don't know. But let me know if you're planning on any of that to try and get yourself further up to the top. Great work by all these guys in the top 10. And I'm starting to score like this top 10 now, so hopefully I can move back up towards the top 10. Okay, so that's fantasy for everyone this week. Let's talk about Moto 2. Let me remind myself of the results here. Moto 2, Manu Gonzalez, masterclass this weekend. Absolute masterclass from the lad. Very, very good. A bit of a return to form for Albert Arenas, so good job by him. And the main highlight of the race, I think, was the fight between just a proper old duel, pistols at dawn from Canet and Moreira, and it was great. And it almost brought Vietti into it on the last lap, but just needed maybe another half a lap to be able to strike in any way, but caught them for the last corner. Not close enough to do anything. There was no real big title implications in terms of DNFs and things like that. The main thing is, I guess, the official drop away now of Jake Dixon. It did this weekend, was it one where it's like your likes of Barry Baltus and, maybe your Alonso Lopez's, Philip Salach, Center Aegis, so they may be like, well, they're not really, really top guys just yet. They're not really in it. Strong from, like I said, Vietti at home. Dennis Onchu showing that it's not just a flash in the pan. Now he can run at the front consistently. It was nice to see Izan Guevara and David Alonso running in the top 10 as well. I thought they were good. But yeah, Manu Gonzalez back into the championship lead now. And I think, are we all in agreement he'll kick on from here? We'll see how Assen goes. And I would like to talk about Manu, actually, because he had the test after Aragon with Trackhouse. And you know what? The word is they were pretty impressed. Like, he was comfortable on the bike. He looked good. He worked well with the team. And, apparently they were pretty happy. So, is this one where, as we're starting to fill spots for next season, is Aprilia maybe looking and going, we're not going to go after another big name this time? They're not going to try and tempt a Pedro on maybe some big money like they did with Martin. Are they not going to go after maybe a Bastianini or maybe even, like, dare I say, a Miller to try and get an old head in there? For me, it looks more like with this, and if they are positive on this and they maybe want to get him on the bike again or they go into talks with him or whatever, is this one where they're like, we could move. We could see ourselves maybe holding on to Raul for another year. Who knows? Could we see a promotion of an Iagura to Aprilia and then bringing in a Manu Gonzalez and just having Bez as your experienced guy, Raul and Iagura another year more experience there, and then Manu Gonzalez, who looks to be every bit a MotoGP rider at the moment, with another good young talent. And are they going to try and do that? Or do they... Because I know the idea was when you bring in Jorge Martin was like they are missing one ingredient and it's a top tier rider. It's an A rider. And you still kind of feel like that might be the case. So maybe they should be looking at someone who can take them to glory. But are they going to be happy enough to maybe go in this direction? It's interesting that he's had a... So how often do you ever see a Moto2 rider going for a mid-season test on a MotoGP bike? Can't be that common. It leads me to think maybe they're going in that direction, but Aprilia wants to sort of maybe promote someone and then bring in Manu to Trackhouse. So that would be interesting. Moto3, this was a humdinger, as it always is in Mugello. I mean, what was it? Like halfway through the race, the lead group was 20, and the only guy that had fallen off the back was Detweiler had fallen off the back, and he was the only one. The lead group was 21 guys or something for like a good 2/3 of the race, I want to say, if I'm remembering properly. Maybe only half the race. But this one, I could go over this blow by blow, right? But I'm not going to, because there was guys like at the front, they got knocked wide, then they came back, and then they got to the back of the group, then they got stuck in the middle of the group, and they never got back, and then the group split, and they never come back up, and then Rueda or whatever ended up back near the front, and after he struggled midpoint of the race. But basically, Max Keeles, fantastic win, holds on the line from Carpe. Dennis Foggia got himself in it somehow. Brilliant from him. Rueda was there or thereabouts. David Munoz. There was a little sketchy few moments between the likes of him and a few others. I think maybe Kelso was involved in one where they kind of were at fault for something, but it wasn't enough at fault that you could be like, categorically that was their fault. There wasn't huge contact. So, look, it was what it was. There was cool little scraps throughout. This classic Mugello thing where 20 of them go onto the straight together and they end up 6 wide. Almost like one big clump of riders turning into turn 1. It was what it was. Keeles did brilliantly to win the race. Carpe was fantastic. Foggia did really, really well. Rueda, I thought, while struggled, like I said, in the midpoint of the race, did really well to get himself back near the front. And here or there, I thought, like, even the likes of Ralston was good at points, even though he fell away. Scott Ogden had a cracking weekend. Couldn't crack the top 10 in the end, but really is a bit of luck of the draw sometimes in these ones, isn't it? Where it's like, if you position yourself wrongly once on one of those runs into turn 1, it can really derail your whole race. And it did happen to a couple of them, but really good again. Another great weekend. We try and turn this video around nice and quickly now. Try and get an edit done. It is already Thursday. Jesus, took me ages to get to this one. And we will turn it around for Assen now, because I think that we're going there this weekend. I'll be watching bikes again tomorrow. Thanks to all the new subscribers. Hope you're enjoying the videos. And valet for life. You know what I mean? See you on the next one. Take it easy.